roughly 1 minute, and then we will start. We have people from the UK. Hello, hello. Probably have the similar weather as we have in Norway these days. August has been, in the city I'm living now, it has not been raining as much since 1924 in August, in the month of August. So do not come to Bergen, Norway.
I thought you were going for a joke with like that precise of a date in the beginning. It's been 100 years of no rain, basically.
Was hoping that Dennis would show up soon as well. Just gonna move this one over there. Should be here soon. But we can say hello and welcome. Welcome to the first ever Data Plus Maps Tableau user group. We are located all over the world since this is a virtual one, so we have people joining in from everywhere. So just feel free to use the chat to put in your location so we can see where you're located. This is something that has been in the works for some time. This user group. After the TC in San Diego, I met with some people and we discussed this. That there was kind of a gap in the user groups, even though everybody talks about maps sometime somewhere in multiple user groups, but there's no dedicated user groups for maps or for spatial or for geography. So started to speak with some people I know that are really good in making and building maps. You'll find that on Tableau Public, you find that on LinkedIn and everywhere. And as you can see on this map, we have 4 co-hosts of this user group, located all over the world, from Canada to Indonesia to Switzerland and Norway. And the idea of this user group, depending on the feedback, depending on the interest, we'll do this user group virtually every 3-4 months or more, depending on. We will have an agenda where you'll see that we'll have one person will spotlight. We'll have one person that does the kind of the keynote or the big topic as well. And today we have a bit of a couple of extra things as well. So everybody in the leaders here can introduce themselves. Since I've been talking a lot already, I obviously I'm humble. I'm very nice guy from Norway, so I'll just start since I'm here. My name is Tore Levensen. I'm a Tableau Jedi from Inmeta Consulting in Bergen on the west coast of Norway. I've been a Tableau ambassador for 3 years, crossing my fingers for a fourth. I'm running the Tableau user group in Norway, and I've been using Tableau since version 7, which is now 12 years ago, the version that introduced filled maps, which I assume a lot of you guys have have used that feature over many years. So I'll get over to you, Dennis, since you are on the left-hand side.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon from today, sunny Ottawa in Ontario, Canada. It's so great to see everybody here. I'm really happy and honored to be a part of this tug. As you may know, I like creating maps. I use maps in my work, where I'm a professor of social work at Carleton University. So I use maps to look at health equity issues, spatial accessibility of health services, and things like that. And then on the side, kind of on the Tableau public side, I like to kind of explore the more creative side of data art and map making. So thank you for coming. It's great to see everybody.
Thank you. We'll move over to a bit south of me to George.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. Hi from me as well. So I'm currently joining in from Zurich, Switzerland. Just want to start by saying thanks to my co-leaders for putting this together. My reason for being here is that I want to learn more about maps. I think there's not enough being said about maps, and it's kind of like a tricky thing to get right, perhaps at least for me. A quick background: I'm a Tableau public ambassador. It's my first year, hopefully going for a second, and I work as a data visualization specialist, mostly focused on Tableau. Good to be here.
Perfect. Thank you. And then finally, last but not least, as they say, Teddy.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Teddy is here. I have been working at Indonesian Custom for over 20 years as a project analyst. I began my journey using Tableau in 2015 and has 9 years of experience. I'm actively involved in different communities initiative. I co-lead the Jakarta Tableau user group with several others, and also now co-lead the Data Maps Tableau user group as well. And thank you. Back to Flore. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, Louis says it's 11 p.m. Where Teddy is now, but we also have people from Sydney here, where it's 2 p.m. So really lovely to see people from all different time zones in here. Some housekeeping for those of you who haven't been to a user group before. Everything will be recorded. We'll share a lot of links also through the chat. So if you have anything that you would like to deep dive into, you will find it in there. Audio and video is disabled for all our participants because we have many of you out there. But please feel free to use the chat to put in some comments or where you're located and so forth. But we also have a Q&A. So if you have any questions to the speakers, to the tug leaders in here, please feel free to use the Q&A and we'll answer as we go along. And enjoy, of course. Maps is what we're here for. So we've done the introductions, introducing our co-leaders, and the agenda today will very soon start with spotlighting one member of the Datafam. So that's Dennis, who will do that and speak with Damola, which is also present. And then we'll switch over to Nir, who will talk about amongst other things, his Roman Empire visualizations give us a lot of tips and tricks as well on maps and the way he works with maps. And then, unfortunately, Sarah, she's on, well, unfortunately, good for her, she's on holiday. But she's doing the RNquest map challenge. And there's a lot of submissions that have come in last week. Me, Teddy, and Dennis co-hosted, or we did a review on the submissions, so that's available on YouTube. But we'll go through some of those that we found really good, that we'll talk a bit through and say why we like them so much. And then in the end, we'll do a quick wrap up. And some of you might have seen that we don't have, or we have some logos in here, or some made by Teddy, something that we put on the Bevy page, which is done by ChatGPT. But we have a competition to create our new Data Plus Maps logo, where you can win a gift certificate from the Tableau shop. So hopefully we get some good entries there. So then I'll move over to well, Sarah is here, so as we said, but we'll do our best. There's a lot of guys in here today, really. So that was, it's a bit annoying that Sarah couldn't be there, but just pay attention to the RNquest submissions and see what kind of gender it is on the people who have submitted, the ones that we liked the best. So I'll move over to you, Dennis, and I'll mute myself. So I think I've
Great.
said enough.
Okay, great. So first things, the first thing on our agenda is just an opportunity. We want to showcase a member of the Datafam that we think, you know, is doing some great things with maps, and particular in Tableau public, in the Tableau public space. So I have the honor of interviewing Damola, Ladipo, who back in 2020, when I first started my Tableau journey, was probably one of the first people I followed on Tableau Public. It's just I saw a couple of his maps, and we'll showcase a few of his. Some of them are on the slide here, but he was one of the first people that I followed and followed his work on Twitter and things like that. He doesn't do as much work, but you'll notice that all his work that he does do, the one or two every so often, are just stellar. And he just has a really distinctive design style. And so thank you, Damola, for joining us.
Thanks so much for the great introduction. Really appreciate it.
So just the first things first, do you want to just introduce yourself really quick and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Damola Ladipo, and I'm on the call here from Washington, D.C., actually technically Maryland, recently moved. But yeah, so I'm an ambassador for 2 years now. And I've been working with Tableau since 2018, but working specifically with Tableau Public since early 2021. I think like shortly after the pandemic started. Got involved in a lot of community projects since then, and also just doing random projects by myself, as Dana has mentioned with some of the visits I've shared. And yeah, really glad to be here. And so actually for work, I'm a data visualization specialist for DevTech Systems, which is a federal contractor for USAID, which is the United States Agency for International Development.
Great. So thank you for joining us today. So just from I think a broader data visualization kind of standpoint, and specifically maps, because that's the, obviously the tug today, what we're trying to focus on. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of makes you tick? Like what's your approach? And this is going to be really broad. What inspires you? Can you share a little bit about your style and kind of how you approach a project?
Yeah, great question. As far as what makes me tick, I mean, I'm obsessed with visualizing data, and constantly in my life, I'm always thinking about when I see something, oh, how could this be visualized? How could that be visualized? Maps in particular provide a really interesting way to display patterns and to provide a lot of meaning to things, and sometimes to compelling stories, although stories might not always be there. So I'm always really excited about figuring out ways to create something impactful for readers or users looking at my data visualizations. As far as like where I get inspiration, definitely the Tableau Public community. First discovered it on Twitter or X. A lot of community members there. I also follow many people on this call here. I get a lot of inspiration from them. But I also use things such as Dribble, Pinterest. I also follow a lot of data journalists and graphic designers to get a lot of aesthetic insights on how to visualize, especially in maps too. I don't think you need to limit yourself personally when it comes to improving visualization just through other data visualizations. There are other mediums. An interesting one that I find a lot of inspiration from, which is quite different, is a lot of other types of media. So I find inspiration from movies and documentaries that I watch. How things are laid out, how colors are used, how sometimes when text is on the screen, how is that displayed? I sometimes get an idea. I have my phone is full of different screenshots from things I've watched of really liking how something was displayed and how I could implement something specific to improve how I'm trying to convey a message in something I'm visualizing.
Okay, great. So your style, like I said, is very distinctive. Whenever I see a viz of yours, like I don't even have to know who created it. I almost automatically know that must be a Damola piece. And usually, and about maybe 95% of the time, I'm correct. Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about your style, like kind of I don't know, like maybe your workflow, how you approach data, and then and more kind of your design, kind of what are you trying to do, what's your thinking behind it, and things like that.
Yeah, so as far as my workflow, it's the typical one, with a little difference in that, you know, I have the data, I sketch out ideas, um, and then develop some mock-ups and then get the actual visualization. But one thing that's different with me is that because as I said before, I get a lot of inspiration from other things. I kind of have a running list, whether it's in my head or literally on my phone in my notes, of design tips and ideas and styles. And then through that mock-up process, or even through that data analysis initial stage, I'm using some of those ideas to kind of think, okay, maybe this idea from XYZ thing from media or graphic designer or data journalist could inform how I'm going to visualize something on a map. So I kind of follow this like feedback loop before I get to that final result. I have a ton of things that I kind of throw away before I finally get to one I really like. Even in my Tableau public, like the amount of vids I have that I've not released is even more than the ones I've actually published. But as far as some specifics of some of my visualizations, a lot of the time they follow the same kind of theme. So many people on the call might be familiar with Z or F formats. So I typically follow a Z. So I have the title at the top, I have the description text under, I have the large visualization, which could be a map or a small multiples map. And then I have the how to read it, sorry, or the legend, and then additional information such as data sources and my information and so on and so forth. I also follow like the rule of thirds. And lastly, like I try to follow a less is more approach to like varying degrees of success at times, to really get something impactful. And I guess one other thing is the use of color. So I find color to be really important when necessary and possible, and really picking colors based to really both capture the attention of someone looking at visualizations, but also a way to convey a message. If there are colors specific to something you're trying to show, they're trying to use them. So I made a map recently on Euro 2024, and I tried to use some of the design colors they were using for a lot of the advertisements about Euro 2024.
Right. Great. Do you have a favorite tip or trick that you employ often?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific one. I'm gonna say I used one recently, actually in a viz I just, and I learned this from the Flairledge twins, and it's that there are transparent hex colors. So I think it's hash or hashtag 6Fs00, and that has a lot of application in maps. I used it for a button, so when a button was not selected, the background was blank, versus when it was selected, there was color. But there's a lot of applications for that in maps too. So if you check out the Flairledge twins website, you can find a lot of uses for that in maps. Another one I do use actually a lot, also from the Flairledge twins, is on the mark. If you're ever dealing with marks on a map that are too small, if you use the simple calculation of average of 1 and put that on the size, if you're ever stuck with and you want a mark to be larger, if you put that calculation on the size, you can get that mark to actually be much larger. And lastly, one that I've recently started using since it was released is the ability to actually have marks on different sheets have the exact same size. So previously, and I'm assuming many of you have run into this problem, in that if you have two different marks on the sheet and you want them to be the exact same size, you kind of have to eyeball back and forth. But if you jump to the web editor, there's the percentage on the sizing that you can get the exact same down the percentage sizing of two different marks on or more on multiple sheets to get them the same size. Great,
thank you. Any favorite maps out there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of maps I like. I can go really general first. So I love any kind of like ancient world, early BC map.
Oh yeah,
where we're looking at a map where it's the first explorers and what they thought the world was, you know, with the 3 countries that were on there. I mean, there are some like 6th century BC maps that are amazing to look at. I find them fascinating. Another one would be one I'm sure most people have heard of, which is the Broad Street Cholera map by John Snow. And this is the one in 1854 where people thought that it was bad air spreading cholera in London, but due to John Snow actually marking where cholera was occurring in London, it showed that it was actually bad water from water pumps, which saved millions of lives, which is, I think, one of the catalysts to epidemiology being started. And then one more recently that I came across that I really, really like is the Tube Map Central. I came across that on X or Twitter, and it recently went viral. And it's basically a reimagining map of London, the London Underground network. So using circles and lines rather than the way it was mapped before. And it's supposed to be actually more geographically accurate than the previous London Underground map. I know there's some controversy about that, but regardless, I find it really fascinating to look at, and I highly recommend people checking it out.
Very cool. Very cool. I think we have a little time for questions from folks, but one last question, for just a little to get a little more personal. Do you have any kind of guilty pleasures when you're not visiting, map designing, and not working?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's a guilty pleasure. But I am. It's actually a pleasure.
That's the question.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm a big baker. Specifically, I love baking bread.
Wow.
Back in 2019, I was working overseas, so I used to do humanitarian work overseas. And living in a compound, I was working with a French colleague that was a really good baker, and I'd asked them if they could just teach me. There wasn't a lot of things to do outside of work there. And it was pretty ad hoc. It was just adding flour, adding yeast, adding water, not really with a recipe, but it worked out. It was great. But then I've since gotten pretty good at baking bread. Nice. I can like bake a whole wheat bread, bake a white bread, bake some bagels. And so I'm experimenting a lot. I mean, I've got it down to a pretty specific science in that I have a specific temperature of the water, temperature of the dough, and so on. So yeah, I've actually thought about ways to making a viz about bread baking, but I haven't figured out what it is. At some point, I'm going to figure something out, and I will do it, but it hasn't worked out just yet.
Okay. You'll just have to bring bread to TC next year, right?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Damola. There are a few questions so far in the Q&A.
Sure.
So Charlotte asks, what's the average time you spend on a Tableau public project?
I would say about for me, a week to a week and a half from finding the data to working on some initial analysis to mock-ups to actually releasing the final thing. There are some, as I said before, there are some vizzes. I said I have a list of unpublished vizzes that I do plan on one day releasing, so I guess that doesn't really count, that are months old, that I just try to figure out and plug and play to figure out what will actually work, but usually like a week to a week and a half before I release one.
Right. What do you like when designing maps? What do you find yourself spending the most time on?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that?
When you're designing maps, what do you find yourself kind of obsessing or spending the most time on? Because your maps are always so polished. So
yeah, I think annotations. I try to make my visualizations ones in which the user doesn't necessarily have to interact with it to get information from it. I know that even when I publish on X or on LinkedIn, people might not click on the link to see the interactive version in Tableau Public. So I try to make it one in which if they're just looking at the static image, they can at least get some very general insights. If they can't hover over to see that specific state in the US map that's highlighting something informative, if I can at least pick out the ones that are most useful to tell users, I try to have annotations there. So that takes time for me to really figure out what makes the most sense to try and portray a story that would be interesting to users that are not going to interact with it.
That's great. That's a great tip. Tore asks, what's the most number of map layers you've used?
Most number of map layers might be 5, but that wasn't actually for a map. I think it was for my West Ham United map. I'm a huge West Ham United fan. And yeah, that was using custom shapes, and I think that one had the most amount of map layers.
Great. All right. Tore, can you just switch to the next slide really quick? Great. So just to give folks an idea, this was the map, and this was, I think, created back in, I want to say December 2020, because this was the first time I saw it, when I was just entering the Tableau space. I saw this map. It just blew me away and really kind of altered my paradigm, really. Like I've done GIS for 15 years using QGIS, using ArcGIS, but then this just like turned me on. This map and then some others kind of turned me on to Tableau. And so I just wanted to showcase this one specifically for folks. All right. So Damola, thank you so much. That's all the time we have, but thank you so much for joining us. Any parting words? See if there's any more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. We appreciate it.
Oh, there's one more question. Sure. If you have time. AJ asked, what drew you to creating map data visualizations? So just in general, like maps in general. I think you talked a little bit about it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I got a master's in international development with a focus on monitoring and evaluation. And when I was doing that, I always knew that data was my primary focus. So I was an M&E specialist and a data analyst before I became a data visualization specialist. But while getting my master's, I hopped over to the GIS college and took some classes on GIS. So I learned ArcGIS. And then after that, I learned QGIS. I unfortunately, because of the work I was doing, didn't need those skills as much, but I still loved making maps. And from there, from time to time, as you can see here, I like to use my skills in my general skills in GIS to create some informative maps. Okay. And yeah, I'm pretty passionate about trying to tell an important story here with food apartheid in Washington D.C. Geographically.
Okay, great. There are some other questions in the Q&A, but I think we need to wrap up this section. Damola, could you spend just a little? I know you have to run at some point, but could you spend a little time answering some of those questions?
Sure. I think we can spend 5 minutes or something.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Damola. It was really great talking to you. And it was great meeting you back at the last TC as well too. For the first time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
George, do you do the next introduction?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that, guys. It was super interesting. Cool. Yeah. So for this next part, it's my great pleasure to introduce Nir. So actually, similar to Damola, I had also started with Tableau in 2018 and then Tableau Public in 2021-ish. And that's when I had actually, then similar to Dennis, come across Nir's profile. And I found, so first of all, Nir, I find your portfolio to be super, beautiful, and it's very visually appealing. And there's some of those vizzes that you see and you're like, man, I really want to figure out how that was built. And you almost compulsively want to kind of drop everything and see how it was done and downloaded and everything. And so it's actually quite fitting that Nir is here today to talk to us about his Roman Empire viz and show us a kind of behind the scene tutorial of how that was made. Maybe a couple of words for Nir from my side. He's a two-time Tableau Public Ambassador, and he's working as a data visualization, data analytics specialist in similar capacity as a Center of Excellence lead and in similar roles for many years. So Nir, it's great to have you. And without further ado, I'd hand over the mic to you. So take it away.
Thank you, Josh, for the great intro. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. If you can unshare your screen so I can share mine. Yeah, thank you. Yes, all right. So you can see it, okay, right?
Yes, perfect.
So hi again, everyone. Today I'm gonna talk about my most favorite viz, I think, in Tableau Public, which is the Roman Empire viz. I think they have some, let's say, help from the trend that was going on that helped this viz become so popular, and I'll talk about it. But again, it was one of the more complicated vizes that I've done, specifically with maps. And I would like to take this 30-40 minutes to hopefully get you through the process. And if you could learn something new, try something new from what I did. So I think this is the purpose here. So without further ado, if you are not familiar with that, let me start with a short video that showcases the features and the capabilities of this viz. So you can see there is a timeline on top, and you can scroll and go over the establishment of the Roman Empire. You can see the area by the emperors who have conquered it. You can see the republic and then how it was transformed to the empire. You can look on the roads themselves, the Roman road, which is a really piece of art, and see the amazing network of roads. Here, all roads lead to Rome. And then you can go through the dynasties. There are 5 dynasties all along the period that I showcases in this visualization. And you can read about it and look on the events, see the cities, learn about the emperors. You can see, you can click on an emperor and see the areas that he conquered. I tried to make this viz as much interactive as it could be. So the user could have a dialogue talking with it, like answering questions and hopefully get answers. So this is the viz, and let's start. Yeah. Okay. So let me talk a bit about myself. As George mentioned, I'm data visualization specialist. Today I'm working on Monday. I have 8 visits of the day, 2 times the Tableau ambassador, hoping for the 3rd one this year. And I have like 3 kids and beautiful wife. I love music. I play guitar and keyboard, and I really like to create visualization on Tableau Public. Luckily, I do it also for my day job and as a hobby. And and you must have heard about the trend that was here. It was in the end, toward the end of 2023, and it was, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? It was really a viral sensation. It highlighted the surprising maybe fact that many men mostly frequently think about the Roman Empire. It was really a social media boom, over 1 million posts, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you find it. It created like historical fascination because it is really impressive. The Roman Empire lasted over 1,000 years, and it influenced a lot of how we live today. There is obviously a cultural impact and educational twist. Like educators took advantage of this trend and share the historical facts and stories, and also it reached millions of viewers. Now let me tell you one fun fact. I honestly wasn't aware of this trend when I started making this viz, and this is for real, guys. I really didn't know about it. It was like, I think 50% through it. My wife told me, "Oh, you're doing it because of this trend," and I told her what trend, and then she said about it. So I think that I'm a man, and I obviously think about the Roman Empire as well without knowing this trend. But anyhow, I really wanted to create this visualization. I got to it by a chance. Many of you talked about how long it takes you to create a visualization, or what takes the most of the time. As for me, especially with maps, it's finding the geospatial layers, the shape files, or the GeoJSON files. And by accident, I got bumped into polygons of the Roman Empire. And then I said, well, how nice would it be to create like a visualization to visualize it? I never thought it would be turned to be the way it is like now. But as time went by, it got more and more complicated. I got more and more layers, and I managed to create this visualization. So today I'm going to talk about how I got the data briefly, and the geospatial layers. Obviously, I'm going to talk about building the map and building the timeline on top of it to create like the full interactive experience that I wanted to deliver while creating this viz. Okay, first of all, an apology. My computer was smashed, so all my data sources and my hard copy visas, including the data sources and the geospatial layers that I downloaded, was gone. So I try to, for you two guys to understand like how I connected the data, I try to create like fake data, so it will Tableau will enable me to see the data scheme. Mostly we have two parts. One is for the timeline, and it's basically a spreadsheet with data about the emperors and the cities and mostly the events. And then there is the right-hand side part, which is the GeoJSONs and the shapefiles. And this is like the map itself, all the layers, needed layers to create that map. And we connect them by the province name. It's like a technical stuff. It shouldn't say anything to you, but the connection is very simple. And if we drill down into each one of them, so we have the provinces, we have the cities, we have the emperors. This is what makes the timeline. And on the right-hand side, we have the shape files, we have the polygons for the Roman Empire, we have the roads, and we have the events. And I don't know if you are familiar with it, but you can actually create a link or join to a geospatial layer using the intersects function. So if you have a geometry file, like a shape file, and another one, so you can use the intersects, and then it creates the join without specific fields, but based on the special mutual area. And one thing worth mentioning is that you cannot do that in the new data model, the relationship. You have to create it like with a traditional join, and then you have the ability to take two geospatial layers and intersect them and make them talk to one another. Yeah. So first thing first, this is the first shapefile that I downloaded. This was the thing that made me make this viz from the first place. So this is basically the areas of all the provinces on the peak of the Roman Empire, and it is colored by the emperors who have conquered it. Basically, it's a geometry file that you put, and then the areas and the emperors have been colored by the dataset. I looked for a dataset that describes the provinces and when the emperors have conquered them, and I joined it together as you've seen, and colored it by the emperor. So this layer is pretty simple. By the way, the viz has the viz on public has a source that unfortunately does not work. So there is an updated source here. So I'll share the presentation in the end, so you can have it as well. But you can download it as a GeoJSON or shapefile, and then to put it on Tableau. If we'll have time, we'll make it a live demo of how you download it and how you create. We'll download that, and we'll download the roads, and we'll create the intersection between them. If we have time, we'll do that. But if you want to try it yourself, you can do it with this link. Okay, next thing is to create the layer for the Empire and the Republic. The Republic is when we started, is like the light blue, and there is the Empire with the maroon color. Basically, this is it's not visible on the viz by default. If you want to make it visible, you have to click on this area here. And the way to make it happen is to create like a parameter direction. The parameter here is like the emperor group. It's basically group of all the provinces grouped by empire or by republic. So if you click on the empire, you get the empire on the map highlighted, and so forth for the republic. And this is the groups, by the way. This is like all the provinces. So the empire is all of these provinces and emperors. And this is like for the republic. And this is like the parameter action interface, how I trigger the click from the area pi, changing the emperor group parameter by using the source, the field of the emperor group. So this is the second layer. Now the roads. The Roman roads, again, this is like again, just a spatial layer that I have downloaded. You can see we have two layers here, one for the minor roads and one for the major roads. We have this distinction on the data. You have the link here as well if you want to download it. Since it's struggling. No. Okay. I tried it before. It's working. And again, you have the same pie here. You have like the major roads and the minor roads. You have the lengths. By the way, this is a new function, geospatial function that Tableau have added lately. So you can use length to measure how long are geospatial lines. So you can see that we have like almost more than 200,000 kilometers of road, which is amazing, especially for this era of time. And it's being distributed by minor and major roads. Each one of them has its own layer. Next one is the cities. Now it's not a field map, it's like a dots for each one of the cities. I get to download a very detailed data set of all the cities with their ancient name and how it's called today. I gave this example of Carthago, the Roman name, which is today in Tunis. And for each city, you can see the area, you can see where it was established. And as you can see, there is a lot of tons of Roman cities all along the empire. And again, this is like a simple make point function. We have the latitude and the longitude in the data set. We create a point, and then we create additional geospatial layer for the cities. Next thing is to place Rome, a simple make point of the exact coordinates of Rome, which is, you can search on Google. And this is like the icon here on the center of Rome. Next thing is the historical event. Again, I had like coordinates where the location of the main events that occurred. And again, this is like a make point of latitude and longitude. And the reason there is a parameter here before that is that they can appear on the timeline. So if the timeline is on a specific year, then it shows all the events that happens until this year and so forth. So you can eventually have like an interactive timeline and scroll through the events and see the development. All right, this is for the map. Any questions so far?
There is something in the Q&A about, there's multiple questions from Alan. How do you clamp the map to the bounding box of the geometries upon movement of the slider?
How do I get the map again? Let me open the Q&A. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, how do you clamp the map to the bounding box of the geometries upon movement of the slider? So when you're moving the slider, I guess that the map should not
Right, so let me,
exceed or go outside of any of the box.
all right, so I have here, this is like a base layer, which actually creates like a rectangle of dummy area. Like I took the most left coordinate on the map, and then the right, and then the top and the upper, and I created like a rectangle, and then I used add to zoom extent, so Tableau knows to count for this area. So as we go on to the timeline, this rectangle expands, because every time it takes the edges of the visible polygons, and this way I can create like the zoom scroll automatically as long as I go with the timeline.
Cool. Alan also asks about, do you float a transparent layer over the zoom controls to prevent pan and zoom?
No, I'm allowing pan and zoom. It's a bit annoying, I might say, because you can easily do this, and then it's really, really annoying. I wish we could have like a way to limit that, like to enable all zooming in and not out. I didn't get a way to do that. If there is anyone who managed to do that, would be helpful, but I want to allow the zoom, and I eventually decided to allow that, although it has this annoying behavior that I showed.
Yeah, there's something that some people, they move around in the map, and then suddenly if they do a filter, the filter doesn't do anything because the map is then on fixed axis. So you can go to the map options and turn off a lot of those map controls as well, if that makes a mess.
Yeah, you can. I had like another viz that I did with maps. I didn't allow the zoom and pan, but I managed to make like a dynamic zoom by selecting a specific group of polygons or specific area, and then you have much control. But here it's like a huge map, and you can, let's say you want to zoom into a specific area, it would be a pity not to allow that. So it's a compromise I had to take.
Final question from Alan was, how did you generate the masks for the difference between the area of interest and the rest of the world? So
Again,
I guess
sorry, how did I?
the masks for difference between area of interest and the rest of the world. So I guess the area is the one that is colored versus the other ones.
It's simply like a layer. So I hope I got this question right. So you can see that if I hide all the layers, then it's a simple map. Then you have the region, and then all the layers on top. So there is no actual masking here. It's simply like creating like a regular map. I think maybe I didn't even took like a custom map from Mapbox. I just took the light map from Tableau and just built like layers on top of it. No masking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so that was the map. And now we have the upper part on top of the map, which is the timeline. And you can see it's not out of the box visualization of Tableau. We have like the timeline here. We have the dynasties marks, the emperor's image, and then the timeline for each one of the emperors by his color. And this is like a great example out of many of using map layers not for maps. Because if I go to this layer in the viz, you can see like tons of layers here on the left hand side. And this is a really cool technique that I learned from Luke Stanke. Like this, I think this was of the cornerstones of map layers, like how to use map layers not for maps. And there is a very detailed walkthrough of how he did that, and it involves many steps, mostly normalizing the numbers so it will fit the longitude and latitude. And then there is eventually you will be able to learn how to use the map layers to create actual graphs and charts like he did here. Very cool. So eventually if you use this technique, you can create like unlimited layers of charts. You can put whatever you want. I try to take this and create like super KPIs. If I have time, I'll show you afterwards. But anyway, this is like a really must-read blog if you want to go and understand how to use map layers beyond map layers, or the name of this blog is Beyond Dual Access. Highly recommended. I really recommend for you to read it. But here it's like a simple make line. I'm talking about the timeline, the colors and the bars for each one of the emperors. So simple make line out of two make points of rule start. This is like the parameter shows what is the height of the of this line will be. So it will be easier for me to adjust it because I needed to place them on top of one another. And I didn't want to guess and then to re-edit the calculated field. So I just use the parameter. And then when everything aligns perfectly, I left it as is. So we have the parameter for the height, and we have like the normalized year for the rule start. Again, the reason we have we need to normalize it is because we are not using like traditional longitude and latitude. We are taking advantage of the longitude and latitude and the layers and using them to create like additional layers. So we normally normalizing them between 0 and 1, and this is like the formula. The value itself minus the absolute minimum divides by the absolute maximum and absolute minimum. And then you get a normalized value by 0 and 1. And once you did that, you can create the make point and then the make line and then create these bars. Next thing is the emperor's images. Again, I used a parameter for the height, so it will be easier for me to align them. And then nor mid rule, which is basically the average between the starting, the rule start and the rule end. And of course, normalizing it. So for each line, I calculated the midpoint, and then I make it a bit on top of it. And this is like what made this layer. And the images are simply images with custom shapes that I've placed. All right, next thing is the timeline. So we have a make point for the dynasties, and this is like the points that you're seeing here. And we have the scroll, like the shapes on top, same idea. The parameter, I use the same parameter, but I just added like a bit, so it will be just up from the timeline. And then the dynasty start as well. Nothing new here. And then we have the axis ticks. Like each tick, it's a specific event. Here you can see like example on this tick here. It's where Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon, very famous event, which started the conflict and the establishment, historian will say, of the Roman Empire. So again, we have like years, we have the event year, and then we are normalizing it and creating a parameter and creating a make point to place all of these sticks all along the timeline axis. And we have the marker. The marker, it's not visible here. Maybe I'll show it on the viz. All right, you can see this. This is like the red spot here. This is the marker. Like you can actually click on each point of the timeline, and then the marker will say that you are here. It's not visible on the slides, but so you'll know what I mean. And for the marker, it's like really a parameter action combination, because I want to allow the user to select a specific marker and then pass the year parameter and then pass it to a filter. So the map will show the relevant geography and development on time. And this is how I can scroll the timeline, and the marker literally moves and the empire grows as we move along. So for the y axis, I again use the parameter, and for the x-axis, there is the year parameter for the interactivity, and then if the parameter equals the rules, then the year, then bring the year, and this is how you can actually filter the years on the map and create the interactivity. And if I wrap it up, and let me show you like all the actions that I have on this viz. So you can see like those parameter actions that I've talked about, the road parameter, the emperor group, the event parameter, the year parameter, then highlights. If I click on the emperor and I want to show the areas that he conquered, and then the dynasty lines and the roads highlight that I've shown. So many action relatively, and this is like the way to make everything talk to one another. Any question, guys?
I haven't seen any new questions, but I like Dennis's comment that the timeline has more map layers than the actual map.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, so no questions for now, it looks like. So
Okay, so that's it for me. I guess we finished a bit early, but yeah, if you have no question, I invite you to keep in touch. If you have further questions, I really encourage you to connect. I try to be as involved with the community and give back from all the things that I've learned from it. It's like the most amazing community that we have, and I think this is what makes Tableau the great product that it is, because all of the surrounding communities around it. Basically, there is no questions, how to question that you can ask on Google, and you won't find someone who created a blog or answered on the forum. So this is great, and I try to be as responsive and as kind as the community was to me. So if you have anything, feel free.
there's a question if you are presenting at Dreamforce.
Nope, nope, not planned.
Are you coming to Datafam Europe in November?
I'm planning to. I really hope that um, it will happen eventually, because there are some constraints. We want to overcome them, and this is the plan. I really want to go.
Yeah, we'll put in a link to the Datafam Europe for those who are a bit closer to Europe, I guess. But it's kind of a new version from Tableau, because there's been Visit London and Visit Berlin before, and we've had people from all over the world.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of nice feedback over here. So we put in the well, you have the link here for your Tableau public profile as well. We'll put it in the chat, so please sign up there. Let's see, there was a question. Yeah, there's a question as well. Is your job history based, or is this a hobby?
Hobby. I'm not an historian. Like I said, I create visualization on many topics, mostly music, because this is like the most significant second hobby of mine after data visualization. And basically, I create videos on what interests me on a specific time, whether it be music or politics. And sadly, the war that we're going through lately got me occupied with the related visas. But I really hope to that it will end soon, and I will create only music visas, because this is what I like to do the most. But no, I'm not historian. I just took the data from the from available resources.
Yeah, somebody commented you were the one who started the trend about the Roman Empire. Well, thank you. It was an amazing visualization, and all the layers and all the calculations, the parameters that goes on in there is something to learn a lot from, and a lot of other tips as well. And just to I'm just going to put in this link to the newbies tag for 2 weeks ago for newbies. So if you feel overwhelmed with what you saw today, have a look at that newbies tag on Maps, because that's on a more tips and tricks newbies level. So if you're new to Maps, that's a great place to go and get some tips and tricks, and then in no time you will be building maps like Nir is doing as well. Perfect. Then I'll share my screen again, and we'll switch over to the last or second to last topic, the one where we don't have Sarah Bartlett here yet, or not yet, but today. But this is about the Iron Quest. So this is something that Sarah has been doing for many years. She has a blog post called Sarah Loves Data, and then she's doing this Iron Quest challenges, and been doing that for I don't know how many years. And then she, when she knew that we were doing this new user group, she did a maps challenge. So basically, build whatever you want in Tableau using maps. And yeah, Dennis added also the recap in there. These are all the submissions that she got. And last week we were able to do a review on the ones that wanted to have a review. Dennis also submitted an amazing visualizations in here, but he didn't require any feedback because, of course, all of his visualizations are perfect, right, Dennis? And we went through these, and some of these are highlighted. So we'll go quickly through them now, so you can see some of these that are available. All of these that you can see in here, you will find on the link that is in the chat as well, if you would like to have a look. So this is picked by you, Teddy.
Yeah, thank you, Tore. I love Yaroslav map because her infographic is impressive piece of work due to several factors. Um, I think it's clear and concise storytelling, well organized and easy to follow with clear headings and labels and color coded map. And the use of chart graph and timeline effective visualize the data, make it easier to understand complex information. So overall, this infographic is excellent example of how to effectively communicate complex complex scientific information through visual appealing. So I love her infographic. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, put the link in the chat as well. And as with a lot of the people who do these things, they get feedback from Sarah, and in this case also some of us, and they take this into account. And if you look at it now, and you might look at it in a week, there might even be more changes or improvements to these. But it's a really nice one. Second one is from Anastasia from Dubai, and this one I'll put it in the chat as well. This is lighthouses of the world. I've seen something similar by one of the guys co-hosting this group, lighthouses of, was it Greece, wasn't it, George? Which I also found really nice and clean to look at. And if we have a look at the actual visualization on Tableau Public as well, it's a dark map, which is really, of course, fitting the topic when we're looking at lighthouses of the world in there. There was a couple of things, even though you find something and you think it's perfect, and just keep it as it is. We gave some feedback, and Anastasia has already updated a couple of these the feedbacks that we gave her. But it's really nice with the interactivities. You can zoom into different regions of the world as well. And of course, the first thing I ever do when I look at the map, what is going on in Norway. So I always try to find my home country in there and see what it looks like. So we see that we have there's a lot of coast over there, and there is some lighthouses also around here. Not sure if there might be something strange going on over here, because this is on the inside of Norway, but it could be close to a lake or something as well. So really clean, simple map, and really fits the theme of the Iron Quest as well. So the next one.
Yeah, so it was hard to pick one, but for me, this one jumps out. I think it's generally really hard to make like flags work. So I have tried in the past to do a viz with country flags, and there's just so much going on, different shapes, colors, which it's hard to make it non-overwhelming. But yeah, I find this viz super beautiful. I could imagine it being printed out, as an infographic and on a wall somewhere. And it's using this technique, which is it's called a Dorling cartogram. It's basically this kind of stacked bubble effect. And I haven't seen this technique a lot around, but what I find interesting about it is that it compromises by design a little bit the accuracy, because you have to make the bubbles kind of not overlap. So you have to move things a little bit around. But I find that this viz works well, especially with the outline of the world map in the background. The position might not be exact, but it gives you a visual reference of where to look for each of the countries, which I think makes it quite readable. And I also like how she's using the entire space here so you're using the empty space well, basically, and using the entire background for the map so that things are not squished, basically, and you can very easily see. I like the toggles. For me, this is a very complete. My favorite actually toggle is this one, Tori. Yeah, exactly. The last one you're about to click on, density and urban population. I think that looks great. So good job.
Yeah, and once again, Norway is somewhere out in the ocean, but as you said, it's really difficult to get all those circles fit into the map, but you see the rough location as well.
Okay. So Lila submitted a viz about the history of a town or city called Zahnstad. Is that how you pronounce it? And I really like how a few things. I think I like how simple the map is, how integrated the map is as part of the story. I like how the map it just kind of fits in. Like you can, it just feels like it's a part of the overall viz. It doesn't feel separate. It feels like it's kind of integrated as part of the story. And if it was me, there's like a lot going on. As simple as it is, there's a lot going on with kind of different symbols and stuff like that. I think if it was me, I don't think I would have been as creative. I would probably have created separate maps to highlight some of the stories. But I think Lila has been able to kind of integrate very creatively a variety of symbols, and with the legend right there, really easy to kind of figure out what's going on in terms of population size, the number of windows in a building, and things like that. So really good job, Lila.
I think that I actually have shared the link to the presentation rather than to the public profiles or public quizzes, but I'll put them in there, and you'll also find all of them on Sarah's blog post as well. So this concludes today's Data Plus Maps, the presentations, but we also, as we teased in the beginning, we do have a Data Plus Maps Tableau user group kind of a logo over here that has been made, but Teddy?
Yes, and we have good news. We have decided to extend the submission deadline from August 21st to October 21st, still 2024. This extension is aimed at giving all participants more time to prepare and submit their logo and banner. The idea of this contest is to create our new data maps, PUG logo and banner, and to encourage community participation and create strong visual identity. Our criteria is quite simple. We want logo and banner that reflected Tableau, maps, spatial, and geography and data as well. And then the winner of this contest basically get $50 gift card each, but logo and banner category. You may submit multiple entries, and the winner we will announce in our upcoming event, maybe late October or early November. And speaking about tools, up to you, but be aware that you don't use any copyrighted materials. And for more details, you can visit Torres LinkedIn account profile. And we look forward to seeing your incredible submission and celebrating the talent and creativity of our Datafam together. Thank you for your engagement and good luck to all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I put in the form to submit this. It's also in the chat. So Dennis didn't know about this, so he will submit more now. I think there will be a meetup most likely in November. If you would like to speak at that event or in a future event, please use this QR code or this form. It's a general one for submitting into Tableau user groups all over the world. There's many of them. But if you would like to, you have something engaging and interesting to talk about or share when it comes to maps, please sign up for this. So hopefully you've learned something interesting today. We've gone through the Q&A, and then I think we'll go there. Thank you, and see you in most likely in November.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.